Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin is the current president of Russia, holding the office since the 7th of May 2012. He was prime minister from 1999 to 2000 and president from 2000 to 2008, and again prime minister from 2008 to 2012. During his second term as prime minister, he was the chairman of the ruling United Russia Party. Born in Leningrad, Putin studied German in high school and speaks the language fluently. He studied law at the Saint Petersburg State University, graduating in 1975. Putin was a KGB Foreign Intelligence Officer for 16 years, rising to the rank of lieutenant colonel before retiring in 1991 to enter politics in St. Petersburg. He moved to Moscow in 1996 and joined President Boris Yeltsin's administration, rising quickly through the ranks and becoming acting president on the 31st of December 1999. When Yeltsin resigned, Putin won the subsequent 2000 presidential election by a 53% to 30% margin, thus avoiding a runoff with his Communist Party of the Russian Federation opponent, Gennady. He was re-elected president in 2004 with 72% of the vote. During Putin's first presidency, the Russian economy grew for 8 straight years, and GDP measured in purchasing power increased by 72%. The growth was a result of the 2000s commodities boom, high oil prices, and prudent economic and fiscal policies. Because of constitutionally mandated term limits, Putin was ineligible to run for a third consecutive presidential term in 2008. The 2008 presidential election was won by Dmitry Medvedev, who appointed Putin prime minister, beginning what has been called a period of tandemocracy. In September 2011, after presidential terms were extended from 4 to 6 years, Putin announced he would seek a third term as president. He won the March 2012 presidential election with 64% of the vote, a result which aligned with pre-election polling. Falling oil prices coupled with international sanctions imposed at the beginning of 2014 after Russia's annexation of Crimea and military intervention in eastern Ukraine led to GDP shrinking by 3.7% in 2015. Though the Russian economy rebounded in 2016 with 0.3% GDP growth, and is officially out of the recession. Under Putin's leadership, Russia has scored poorly on both the Economist Intelligence Unit's Democracy Index and Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index. Putin has enjoyed high domestic approval ratings during his career, and received extensive international attention as one of the world's most powerful leaders. In 2007, he was the Time Person of the Year. In 2015, he was on the Times Most Influential People list. Forbes ranked him the world's most powerful individual every year from 2013 to 2016. Early life and education. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on 7 October 1952 in Leningrad, Russian SFSR, Soviet Union, the youngest of 3 children of Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin and Maria Ivanovna Putina. His birth was preceded by the death of 2 brothers, Victor and Albert, born in the mid-1930s. Albert died in infancy, and Victor died of diphtheria during the siege of Leningrad in World War II. Putin's mother was a factory worker and his father was a conscript in the Soviet Navy, serving in the submarine fleet in the early 1930s. Early in World War II, his father served in the destruction battalion of the NKVD. Later, He was transferred to the regular army and was severely wounded in 1942. Putin's maternal grandmother was killed by the German occupiers of Tver region in 1941, and his maternal uncles disappeared at the war front. On the 1st of September 1960, Putin started at school number 193 at Barskov Lane, near his home. He was one of a few in the class of approximately 45 pupils who was not yet a member of the Young Pioneer Organization. At age 12, he began to practice Sambo and Judo. He wished to emulate the intelligence officers portrayed in Soviet cinema. Putin studied German at Saint Petersburg High School 281, and speaks German fluently. Putin studied law at the Saint Petersburg State University in 1970 and graduated in 1975. His thesis was on the most favored nation trading principle in international law. While there, he was required to join the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and remained a member until December 1991. Putin met Anatoly Sobchak, an assistant professor who taught business law, and who would be influential in Putin's career. KGB career. Uniform. In 1975, Putin joined the KGB, and trained at the 401st KGB school in Okhta, Leningrad. After training, he worked in the 2nd Chief Directorate, before he was transferred to the 1st Chief Directorate, where he monitored foreigners and consular officials in Leningrad. From 1985 to 1990, he served in Dresden, East Germany, using a cover identity as a translator. According to Putin's biographer Masha Gessen, Putin and his colleagues were reduced mainly to collecting press clippings, thus contributing to the mountains of useless information produced by the KGB. According to Putin's official biography, during the fall of the Berlin Wall that began on the 9th of November 1989, he burned KGB files to prevent demonstrators from obtaining them. After the collapse of the Communist East German government, Putin returned to St. Petersburg, where in June 1991, he worked with the International Affairs section of St. Petersburg State University, reporting to Vice-Rector Yuri Molchanov. There, he looked for new KGB recruits, watched the student body, and renewed his friendship with his former professor Anatoly Sobchak, the mayor of St. Petersburg. Putin resigned with the rank of lieutenant colonel on the 20th of August 1991. On the second day of the 1991 Soviet coup d'etat attempt against the Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, Putin said, "As soon as the coup began, I immediately decided which side I was on." Although he also noted that the choice was hard, because he had spent the best part of his life with the organs. In 1999, Putin described communism as a blind alley, far away from the mainstream of civilization. St. Petersburg administration. In May 1990, Putin was appointed as an advisor on international affairs to Mayor Sobchak. On the 28th of June 1991, he became head of the Committee for External Relations of the St. Petersburg Mayor's Office, with responsibility for promoting international relations and foreign investments and registering business ventures. Within a year, Putin was investigated by the City Legislative Council led by Marina Sali. It was concluded that he had understated prices and permitted the export of metals valued at $93 million in exchange for foreign food aid that never arrived. Despite the investigators' recommendation that Putin be fired, Putin remained head of the Committee for External Relations until 1996. From 1994 to 1996, he held several other political and governmental positions in St. Petersburg. In March 1994, Putin was appointed as first deputy chairman of the government of St. Petersburg. In May 1995, he organized the St. Petersburg branch of the pro-government Our Home is Russia political party, the Liberal Party of Power founded by Prime Minister Viktor Chernomyrdin. In 1995, he managed the legislative election campaign for that party, and from 1995 through June 1997, he was leader of its St. Petersburg branch. Early Moscow career. Director, 1998. In 1996, Sobchak lost his bid for re-election in St. Petersburg. Putin was called to Moscow, and in June 1996 became a deputy chief of the Presidential Property Management Department headed by Pavel Borodin. He occupied this position until March 1997. During his tenure, Putin was responsible for the foreign property of the state, and organized transfer of the former assets of the Soviet Union and Communist Party to the Russian Federation. On 26 March 1997, President Boris Yeltsin appointed Putin Deputy Chief of Presidential Staff, which he remained until May 1998, and Chief of the Main Control Directorate of the Presidential Property Management Department. His predecessor on this position was Alexei Kudrin and the successor was Nikolai Patrushev, both future prominent politicians and Putin's associates. On 27 June 1997, at the St. Petersburg Mining Institute, guided by Rector Vladimir Litvinenko, Putin defended his candidate of science dissertation in economics, titled "The Strategic Planning of Regional Resources under the Formation of Market Relations." This exemplified the custom in Russia for a rising young official to write a scholarly work in mid-career. When Putin later became president, the dissertation became a target of plagiarism accusations by fellows at the Brookings Institution, although the dissertation was referenced. The Brookings Fellows asserted it constituted plagiarism, albeit perhaps unintentional. The dissertation committee denied the accusations. On 25 May 1998, Putin was appointed first Deputy Chief of Presidential Staff for Regions, replacing Victoria Mitina, and, on 15 July, was appointed head of the Commission for the Preparation of Agreements on the Delimitation of Power of Regions, and the Federal Center attached to the President, replacing Sergei Shakra. After Putin's appointment, the Commission completed no such agreements, although during Shakra's term as the head of the Commission there were 46 agreements signed. Later, after becoming president, Putin cancelled all those agreements. On 25 July 1998, Yeltsin appointed Putin as director of the Federal Security Service, the primary intelligence and security organization of the Russian Federation and successor of the KGB. He held that position until 9 August 1999. First premiership. On 9 August 1999, Putin was appointed one of three first deputy prime ministers, and later on that day was appointed acting prime minister of the government of the Russian Federation by President Yeltsin. Yeltsin also announced that he wanted to see Putin as his successor. Still later on that same day, Putin agreed to run for the presidency. On 16 August, the State Duma approved his appointment as prime minister with 233 votes in favor, while a simple majority of 226 was required, making him Russia's fifth PM in fewer than 18 months. On his appointment, few expected Putin, virtually unknown to the general public, to last any longer than his predecessors. He was initially regarded as a Yeltsin loyalist, like other prime ministers of Boris Yeltsin. Putin did not choose ministers himself, his cabinet being determined by the presidential administration. Yeltsin's main opponents and would-be successors were already campaigning to replace the ailing president, and they fought hard to prevent Putin's emergence as a potential successor. Putin's law and order image and his unrelenting approach to the Second Chechen War against the Chechen Republic of Ichkeria soon combined to raise Putin's popularity and allowed him to overtake all rivals. While not formally associated with any party, Putin pledged his support to the newly formed Unity Party, which won the second-largest percentage of the popular vote in the December 1999 Duma elections, and in turn he was supported by it. Acting presidency. On the 31st of December 1999, Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned and, according to the Constitution of Russia, Putin became acting president of the Russian Federation. On assuming this role, Putin went on a previously scheduled visit to Russian troops in Chechnya. The first presidential decree that Putin signed, on the 31st of December 1999, was titled, "On Guarantees for former President of the Russian Federation and members of his family." This ensured that corruption charges against the outgoing president and his relatives would not be pursued. This was most notably targeted at Maybetek's bribery case in which Yeltsin's family members were involved. On the 30th of August 2000, a criminal investigation was dropped in which Putin himself was one of suspects as a member of the Saint Petersburg city government. On the 30th of December 2000, yet another case against the prosecutor general was dropped, for lack of evidence, in spite of thousands of documents passed by Swiss prosecution. On the 12th of February 2001, Putin signed a similar federal law which replaced the decree of 1999. The case of Putin's alleged corruption in metal exports from 1992 was brought back by Marina Sally, but she was silenced and forced to leave St. Petersburg. While his opponents had been preparing for an election in June 2000, Yeltsin's resignation resulted in the presidential elections being held within 3 months. On the 26th of March 2000, Putin won in the first round with 53% of the vote. First presidential term. May 2000. The inauguration of President Putin occurred on the 7th of May 2000. Putin appointed the Minister of Finance, Mikhail Kasyanov, as the Prime Minister. The first major challenge to Putin's popularity came in August 2000, when he was criticized for the alleged mishandling of the Kursk submarine disaster. That criticism was largely because it was several days before Putin returned from vacation, and several more before he visited the scene. Between 2000 and 2004, Putin set about reconstruction of the impoverished condition of the country, apparently winning a power struggle with the Russian oligarchs, reaching a grand bargain with them. This bargain allowed the oligarchs to maintain most of their powers, in exchange for their explicit support for, and alignment with Putin's government. A new group of business magnates emerged, including Gennady Timchenko, Vladimir Yakunin, Yuri Kovalchuk, and Sergei Chemezov, with close personal ties to Putin. A few months before elections, Putin fired Prime Minister Kasyanov's cabinet and appointed Mikhail Fradkov to his place. Sergei Ivanov became the first civilian in Russia to be appointed to the defense minister position. In 2003, a referendum was held in Chechnya, adopting a new constitution which declares that the Republic of Chechnya is a part of Russia. On the other hand, the region did acquire autonomy. Chechnya has been gradually stabilized, with the establishment of the parliamentary elections and a regional government. Throughout the Second Chechen War, Russia severely disabled the Chechen rebel movement. However, sporadic attacks by rebels continued to occur throughout the Northern Caucasus. Second presidential term and other Western leaders in Moscow, the 9th of May 2005 on the 14th of March 2004. Putin was elected to the presidency for a second term, receiving 71% of the vote. The Beslan school hostage crisis took place in September 2004, in which hundreds died. Many in the Russian press and in the international media warned that the death of 130 hostages in the Special Forces rescue operation during the 2002 Moscow theater hostage crisis would severely damage President Putin's popularity. However, shortly after the siege had ended, the Russian president enjoyed record public approval ratings. 83% of Russians declared themselves satisfied with Putin and his handling of the siege. The near 10-year period prior to the rise of Putin after the dissolution of Soviet rule was a time of upheaval in Russia. In a 2005 Kremlin speech, Putin characterized the collapse of the Soviet Union as the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. Putin elaborated, moreover, the epidemic of disintegration infected Russia itself. The country's cradle-to-grave social safety net was gone and life expectancy declined in the period preceding Putin's rule. In 2005, the national priority projects were launched to improve Russia's healthcare, education, housing, and agriculture. In March 2008, the continued criminal prosecution of Russia's then richest man, president of Yukos Oil and Gas Company Mikhail Khodorkovsky, for fraud and tax evasion was seen by the international press as a retaliation for Khodorkovsky's donations to both liberal and communist opponents of the Kremlin. The government said that Khodorkovsky was corrupting a large segment of the Duma to prevent changes to the tax code. Khodorkovsky was arrested, Yukos was bankrupted, and the company's assets were auctioned at below market value, with the largest share acquired by the state company Rosneft. The fate of Yukos was seen as a sign of a broader shift of Russia towards a system of state capitalism. This was underscored in July 2014, when shareholders of Yukos were awarded $50 billion in compensation by the Permanent Arbitration Court in The Hague. On 7 October 2006, Anna Politkovskaya, a journalist who exposed corruption in the Russian army and its conduct in Chechnya, was shot in the lobby of her apartment building on Putin's birthday. The death of Politkovskaya triggered international criticism, with accusations that Putin has failed to protect the country's new independent media. Putin himself said that her death caused the government more problems than her writings. In 2007, dissenters' marches were organized by the opposition group The Other Russia, led by former chess champion Garry Kasparov and National Bolshevist leader Eduard Limonov. Following prior warnings, demonstrations in several Russian cities were met by police action, which included interfering with the travel of the protesters, and the arrests of as many as 150 people who attempted to break through police lines. On 12 September 2007, Putin dissolved the government upon the request of Prime Minister Mikhail Fradkov. Fradkov commented that it was to give the president a free hand in the run-up to the parliamentary election. Viktor Zubkov was appointed the new prime minister. In December 2007, United Russia won 64.24% of the popular vote in the run for State Duma according to election preliminary results. United Russia's victory in the December 2007 elections was seen by many as an indication of strong popular support of the then Russian leadership and its policies. Second premiership. Putin was barred from a third term by the constitution. First Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev was elected his successor in a power-switching operation on 8 May 2008, only a day after handing the presidency to Medvedev. Putin was appointed Prime Minister of Russia, maintaining his political dominance. March 2008. Putin has said that overcoming the consequences of the world economic crisis was one of the two main achievements of his second premiership. The other was the stabilizing the size of Russia's population between 2008 to 2011 following a long period of demographic collapse that began in the 1990s. At the United Russia Congress in Moscow on 24 September 2011, Medvedev officially proposed that Putin stand for the presidency in 2012, an offer Putin accepted, given United Russia's near-total dominance of Russian politics. Many observers believed that Putin was assured of a third term. The move was expected to see Medvedev stand on the United Russia ticket in the parliamentary elections in December, with a goal of becoming prime minister at the end of his presidential term. After the parliamentary elections on 4 December 2011, tens of thousands of Russians engaged in protests against alleged electoral fraud, the largest protests in Putin's time. Protesters criticized Putin and United Russia, and demanded annulment of the election results. Those protests sparked the fear of a color revolution in society. Putin allegedly organized a number of paramilitary groups loyal to himself and to the United Russia Party in the period between 2005 and 2012. Third presidential term. On 4 March 2012, Putin won the 2012 Russian presidential elections in the first round, with 63.6% of the vote, despite widespread accusations of vote rigging. Opposition groups accused Putin and the United Russia Party of fraud, while efforts to make the elections transparent were publicized, including the usage of webcams in polling stations. The vote was criticized by the Russian opposition and by international observers from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe for procedural irregularities. March in Moscow. The 4th of February 2012 anti-Putin protests took place during and directly after the presidential campaign. The most notorious protest was the Pussy Riot performance on 21 February, and subsequent trial. An estimated 8,200 protesters gathered in Moscow on 6 May, when 80 people were injured in confrontations with police, and 450 were arrested, with another 120 arrests taking place the following day. A counter-protest of Putin's supporters occurred, which culminated into a gathering of an estimated 130,000 supporters at the Luzhniki Stadium, Russia's largest stadium. Some of the attendees stated that they had been paid to come, were forced to come by their employers, or were misled into believing that they were going to attend a folk festival instead. The rally is considered to be the largest in support of Putin to date. Putin's presidency was inaugurated in the Kremlin on 7 May 2012. On his first day as president, Putin issued 14 presidential decrees, which are sometimes called May decrees by the media, including a lengthy one stating wide-ranging goals for the Russian economy. Other decrees concerned education, housing, skilled labor training, relations with the European Union, the defense industry, inter-ethnic relations, and other policy areas dealt within Putin's program articles issued during the presidential campaign. In 2012 and 2013, Putin and the United Russia Party backed stricter legislation against the LGBT community. In Saint Petersburg, Arkhangelsk and Novosibirsk, a law called the Rainbow Flag, as well as published works containing homosexual content, was adopted by the State Duma in June 2013. Responding to international concerns about Russia's legislation, Putin asked critics to note that the law was a ban on the propaganda of pedophilia and homosexuality, and he stated that homosexual visitors to the 2014 Winter Olympics should leave the children in peace, but denied there was any professional, career, or social discrimination against homosexuals in Russia. In June 2013, Putin attended a televised rally of the All-Russia People's Front, where he was elected head of the movement, which was set up in 2011. According to journalist Steve Rosenberg, the movement is intended to reconnect the Kremlin to the Russian people and one day, if necessary, replace the increasingly unpopular United Russia Party that currently backs Putin. Intervention in Ukraine and annexation of Crimea. Greet local residents during a visit to the Crimean city of Sevastopol on 9 May 2014. In 2014, Russia made several military incursions into Ukrainian territory after Euromaidan protests and the fall of Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. Russian soldiers without insignias took control of strategic positions and infrastructure within the Ukrainian territory of Crimea. Russia then annexed Crimea after a disputed referendum in which Crimeans voted to join the Russian Federation, according to official results. Subsequently, demonstrations by pro-Russian groups in the Donbass area of Ukraine escalated into an armed conflict between the Ukrainian government and the Russia-backed separatist forces of the self-declared Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics. In August, Russian military vehicles crossed the border in several locations of Donetsk Oblast. The incursion by the Russian military was seen as responsible for the defeat of Ukrainian forces in early September. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande, the 17th of October 2014. In November 2014, the Ukrainian military reported intensive movement of troops and equipment from Russia into the separatist-controlled parts of eastern Ukraine. The Associated Press reported 80 unmarked military vehicles on the move in rebel-controlled areas. An OSCE special monitoring mission observed convoys of heavy weapons and tanks in DPR-controlled territory without insignia. OSCE monitors further stated they observed vehicles transporting ammunition and soldiers' dead bodies crossing the Russian-Ukrainian border under the guise of humanitarian aid convoys. As of early August 2015, OSCE observed over 21 such vehicles marked with the Russian military code for soldiers killed in action. According to the Moscow Times, Russia has tried to intimidate and silence human rights workers discussing Russian soldiers' deaths in the conflict. OSCE repeatedly reported that its observers were denied access to the areas controlled by combined Russian separatist forces. The majority of members of the international community and organizations such as Amnesty International have condemned Russia for its actions in post-revolutionary Ukraine, accusing it of breaking international law and violating Ukrainian sovereignty. Many countries implemented economic sanctions against Russia, Russian individuals or companies to which Russia responded in kind. Attend Moscow's Cathedral Mosque opening ceremony, the 23rd of September 2015. In October 2015, The Washington Post reported that Russia has redeployed some of its elite units from Ukraine to Syria in recent weeks to support Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. In December 2015, Russian Federation President Putin admitted that Russian military intelligence officers were operating in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.